Here we go.
Okay, so the underbelly, we've got the Six of Swords,
Beautiful.
which is the goddess Nut over some people who are going on a journey, and it's a safe, protected journey. Okay, so there's conscience, work, vocation, home, private life, spiritual ideal, and basis, and social. Interesting. And then, so there's like the Celtic cross, and then the ones that go up here: personal identity, um, your network, the world, hopes and fears, and outcome. Oh, oh, this is nice. So there's the past layer. Do you have any particular question? Thinking business.
Not particularly.
'Cause
Maybe about training. Maybe about because I'm not worried about money. But I do wonder where to spend my energy. I'm spending so much free energy, sort of learning about all the shenanigans on the planet at the moment.
So this layer's past, and what you've got is a couple of really interesting things. Like in your personal network is the world, which is the final card of the tarot.
Right.
Which means it's the successful journey of the Fool. And so you've got people in your environment that are something.
I do have very cool people in my environment.
Mm-hmm. And that's in that. And so really, what's been happening, even though, so that bit you just talked about, the time and the...
Yep.
So in vocation, in career part, you've got the Queen of Cups, and she's a bit dreamy and a bit off with the fairies. And you kind of pointed that out a bit. You've been a bit like...
Scattered.
A bit scattered. But that's the only... And then, except what's really going on in action, social, is that this is a guru teaching to women in India. So he's a sadhu and he's teaching, so he's being charitable. He's
right.
actually... So what the spine's been, what's actually been happening is being charitable, and it seems like a waste of time, except the thing is that no sacrifice is ever lost. The reward always comes, this life or next life. But people get frustrated when they sacrifice because they think they're going to lose everything. But nothing's ever lost, and no sacrifice is never rewarded. The universe will bring it back in the future, because everything's recorded.
Okay.
And so we've got that. That's just what sticks out straight away. Except this here in your personal identity is a really amazing card. It's about getting your life back after some traumatic experience. And this card here in the story, this lady, her name was Savitri. It's an Indian story, and she was, and her husband died in an untimely way. He got shot by an arrow of a hunter or something. And so this guy here, his name's Yamaraj, and he's the Lord of Death. So when someone dies, he comes and, sends them to their next destination. And so he's going, oh, your husband died, I have to take him. And she goes, no, actually, she goes, I've done penance and sacrifice all my life. And I know that I have enough sacrificial energy for you to bring him back to life. And he goes, no, I've looked through the annals of his life, of your life, and you don't actually. And she goes, really? She goes, we'll see. And she goes, oh, all right. She goes, let's cash it in then, seeing you're going to challenge me. And she starts asking him questions. She goes, because they were exiled to the forest and they'd lost their kingdom. And she goes, all right, then if you can't give me my husband back, can you give me my kingdom back with the castle and everything? And he's like, yeah, you've got enough for that. And she kept asking for these things that she had enough for. And then he goes, you've hardly got anything left. And he goes, so I'm not. And so he grabbed them and started taking. And she goes, oh, one more thing. And he goes, oh, what? And she goes, I want to have 100 sons. And she goes, okay, you can have that. And he starts carrying him off. And she yells out to him, Yamaraj Ji, I can't have 100 sons without my husband. My husband came back to life and she beat Yamaraj because of her sacrifices. Right? So sacrifice is always rewarded, and you don't want to cash them in, but if you push, she did it just to prove it. And that's the story in the scriptures that shows that no sacrifice is ever lost, and that it's always there waiting. Nice, huh?
Yeah.
So this is in your personal identity, so we'll see what the other cards come on. And really, and the Chariot's up the top, so even though this is the only thing, this dreamy thing's been happening, actually, while that's been going on, there's this amazing stuff like the world here, and this beautiful charity work, teaching people. This is about teaching. Madonna asked about teaching.
Yeah, right.
This is about becoming an enlightened teacher. Look at this reading. And this, home life, you've got the King and Queen of Cups, like, you guys. Also the same thing, even though there's some conflict in the environment, you're in the perfect, it means, that card means a marriage of two really moral, enlightened people. That's why it's cups, because cups are spiritual. Right? And that's a really powerful card, the Ten of Cups, in the home space. Let's get some more cards there. And you've got the Emperor in the centre. As your conscience, it's like such a powerful card. And he's looking at this. I want to read what that card means. I always get it, the Queen of Cups.
So this first layer is to do with what?
This
The
is
past.
This is what everything's building off. And look, it ends up in romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
It's so nice. And you've got that there and that there reflecting it. This is the only thing in Hopes and Fears. That's the story of a journey where these two Hungarian knights, they just go riding. They were chasing this golden stag. They just kept going. And when they got there, they came to this village where there were just all these beautiful women and hardly any men. So they just stayed there and established a Hungarian empire. But that's in Hopes and Fears. So the Queen of Cups. Oh. Do you want to read that? Just not maybe I'll put some more cards there.
Emesh, Queen of the Huns, has a dream. According to an old Hungarian legend, the tribe of the Huns, the forefathers of the Hungarians or Magyars, had a woman chieftain or queen called Emesh. Before the Hungarians settled in the modern Hungary, she had a dream in which her god sent a legendary bird, the Turul, which became the father of her child, a prince from whom the Hungarian kings originated. In this dream she saw a spring that became a river springing from her lap, and on the river all those who later would wear the Hungarian crown. The Hungarians would have a legendary story that tells how they originated in an old kingdom that was swallowed by the Atlantic Ocean. Some people were able to escape from this deluge and founded the kingdom of Sumer, and then of Turan, and finally came to Europe, where they founded modern Hungary. It is therefore the water that flooded the Hungarians' first country, but also the water of the river of their present home. It stands for all positive feelings, since the maternal feelings above all secure the future of coming generations.
Wow, so that's in your workspace. So that's what you've been building.
Right.
What do you think of that? No, read the divinatory quality.
Over the page.
Yeah.
In the positive position, with the top uppermost, a revered woman, ideal mother, lifelong partner or wife who is unsurpassed for goodness, generosity and devotion. The ideal lover, girlfriend or fiancé, young girl, woman or old lady with clairvoyant abilities.
There you are.
A woman who is inclined to poetic daydreams, which she is not able to turn into reality.
The ADHD right there.
Yeah, my ADHD. In the negative position with the bottom uppermost, a woman who with good intentions, but who cautiously causes evil without actually wanting to do so. But we don't have the negative position.
There's not particularly, but there is this. So there could be some relation between that and that. Say that last bit again. But
A
there isn't
woman
really...
in
That's,
the negative position with the bottom uppermost, a woman with good intentions but who causes evil without actually wanting to do so. An
Right.
upright wife who has no luck, lacking moral understanding.
oh, that's not true. So
So this second layer,
the second layer is even more intense. Look at this, major arcana, major arcana, major arcana, major arcana, major arcana. And in their personal identity, look for what's there. It's another story about being brought back from the dead. Like those two cards on top of each other is like real. Look how similar the pictures are. And not only that, this card's here. And in this story, so in the Egyptian story, Osiris and Isis are the king and queen of heaven. And Osiris had a brother who wanted to be the king. And he got with a bunch of conspirators and killed Osiris using 100 tricks, I think it was. And so, and then he cut his body up into 14 pieces and put them all around the empire so that they couldn't bring him back to life. And so these goddesses, so Isis, Nut, and Mut, the goddesses, they did this spell, and they did something with the pieces of the body to bring a reincarnation of Osiris back to life, so that Isis had a child called Horus, and he went and killed Seth and became, I think him and Isis might have ruled, right? But whatever it is, it's this idea of, both of these cards have the idea that somebody's almost mortally wounded, but they're able to rise above it. So that could be a trauma story. It could be some of the things you're experiencing, you know, being on the face edge of the real suffering of people that everyone else is avoiding, and that can affect your identity in a particular way. Like, you know, obviously there's like a betrayal aspect, like, because when you're seeing the whole world picture, it's like it's too much for a person often, because it's so much stress when you see the collective stress, like the statistical stress, like, you know, because we see one or two people sick, but when we look at the broad picture, we see percentages, and they're thousands and
millions.
tens of thousands, and sometimes millions of people. And so, but these cards are really good because they mean that probably this is like helping you rebuild that. There's good people in your environment, keeping you up. And this card here is that this deck's got two personal things. This is the enlightened self, right? Female cards, if that was a boy card, it's your soulmate, but that's your soul self because you've got the three light sources.
So what's this second layer?
The present.
Present,
So
okay.
the present's like really powerful, You've got, because even the cards that aren't major, so here, and then the outcome of this layer is the death card, which is change. The death card, look at these two things up there. That's really something, because this means change, right? And this is thwarting death. Incredible. Right, so this card here means that, so his name was Shabazz, and he came to the throne in Persia when he was like 12.
Yep.
And usually they give a regent. Do you know what I mean? They'll have an older uncle or something to take the throne. But he was 12 and he was so good at it, dealing with the diplomats, distributing everything. What his art was, he was able to distribute information, goods, and wealth so perfectly to everyone that there was harmony in his kingdom throughout his whole reign, and he started at 12. And he had that ability to do things younger than everyone else. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. And because it's so good, it creates harmony everywhere, and that's in your home section. And whether that's advice to do it or whether you've got that down, whatever it is, that's like really nice card. And you've got the High Priestess here. The High Priestess over the world. The High Priestess is about, it describes her story that the card actually means Beth, and it's a door that opens and closes, and it's actually about what we say and what we don't say. Do you know what I mean? And like an example is in counselling, the person in control is actually the person who's asking the questions and saying less, right? It's like different to tarot reading. It's like, so the High Priestess is about becoming the questioner. Do Do you know what I mean? It's like, so you can be quiet, but it's like, it's the power is having the ability to ask the questions. Like in an interview, like a podcast, the person asking the questions is completely in control because they can, yeah. And that card sort of, it's coming to me, that sort of vibe with it. And then over here, look at this. This is amazing stuff. So you got her, that beautiful story about the Queen, and the Fool's on top of it, which who knows what that means. Like, okay, defying logic somehow. So here's Seth, right? Here's Seth, the killer of Osiris, in the present, facing that way.
Right.
That's not very good. But because it's only a minor arcana and it's surrounded by these majors, it's kind of, his energy's blocked. But it's still there. And
So he's trying to kill something.
he's just so Seth represents he represents envy, right? So envy of ability. And so he's really physical. He divides, like in the Crowley deck, he's like he's dividing up the material nature into sections,
Right.
so they can be used, because he's like has this it's completely materialistic. Like, you know, an example would be the way that some of those doctors who are biological doctors, they say everything's a brain imbalance. And it's
Oh,
like,
right, okay.
and it's like, and it's that sort of power that's like incomplete and stupid.
Yeah.
You know, it does work with some things, but it's not, shouldn't be the basis of any rational treatment.
Yeah.
Like, unless you've tried everything else first. Like unless you've tried everything else first. Where they don't offer people counselling, they say take this drug. It's like a bit nutty because you don't get to the, if that can really calm them down to solve their problems. But maybe that happens with some people. But counselling
I don't see the people that it happens with.
No, because like counselling gets into the traumatic section, like the naturopathy gets into the biological section in a better way. Do you know what I mean? It's a more kinder way, a friendlier way. It doesn't have the same type of side effects, and you know, and it's just a more holistic, less harmful way of doing it. But the way they do it, it's like, oh, you got this thing, and next people are on 16 drugs, and maybe it works for some people. Anyway, I'll put more because, man, it's that. You can go back over there. Right, so in the future, you've got some challenges coming up.
Gee, really?
Krishna right away. So you've got 2 twos here, that's really good. And they're both about love. And they're both about spiritual love. Because cups are spiritual, and Krishna, they're like really nice love stories. And look, and even the death card, you've got a couple on it. You've got this nice thing going in your relationship.
So is that the relationship pile?
No, this is actually the outcome pile. So in the present, you've got the death card, which means change. But then you've got this nice card on top, so it's like positive change.
Okay.
And spiritual change, probably. Right. Now here's a challenge. You've got 2 betrayal cards here. We were talking about betrayal trauma. These cards are both betrayal cards. That's what they represent. And this card's about sadness. This card's about getting older, and like you can see there's 3 cups lying down and 1 up. And what his issue is, he's looking at the past and lamenting about, like, you know, his wife's died, his picture of himself being young, and he's feeling old, and, you know, except the message in this reading is you got to focus on the cup up. And the ones that have fallen down, just let them go. Do you know what I mean? You can't change the past. So here's Horus, the other character. We've got all the characters in this Egyptian story. We've got Seth there, and we've got Osiris there, and we've got the goddesses doing their magic spell here. Now here's Horus, but he's turned up in hopes and fears facing that way. Mm. What do you think?
I have no idea.
No? Do you like any of these cards? Or anything standing out?
And what's this one about?
Yeah, we'll read him. Yeah, the reason these true stories are betrayal cards, like we know, and Cleopatra comes from the lineage of Osiris and Isis, but she like suicided to save her country. So that's a self-betrayal card. And this in this story, this is Sita, and in the Ramayana, and so Ram and Lakshman, like Sita's their incarnation, Sita and Ram, like Krishna and Radharani. So they were exiled to the forest, and Ram went out hunting with his brother Lakshman, and they drew a magic circle, and they said, "Don't leave the magic circle, and you'll be safe in the ashram." And so this old guy was like, he was like starving, and he's coming up, and and he fell over, and he goes, "I can't move," and tricked her into coming out of the circle. And when she came out, he was Ravana, the demon, and so he grabbed her and took her off to Sri Lanka, and because he wanted to marry her. But he was cursed, and he was cursed that if he tried to force any woman to have sex with him, he'd die. And so he couldn't use his manipulation tactics, and so nothing ever happened. So she was just locked there. Anyway, it's a really tragic story, but so this card is about staying inside the circle, right? Don't go out where it's not, where there's predators. But it's got these two amazing cards under it, so it's just a warning. But we'll read this guy here, the Knight of Coins. So this is in the home life, but you know also your business is here, and that's a really nice card. Yeah, I'm not trying to. He's the Knight of Coins. Yeah, this one I'm seeing like teaching, right? And then in the present, you're in the middle of this spell to do something, right? And then on top is this like, you want to come out with a new future perspective and not be pulled back into the old way of whatever it was, because it's a new world now.
Yeah.
And so that could be that lamenting, it could be like lamenting for the past way things were. Like it doesn't necessarily mean being old, it's a change that now it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Can be interpreted like that.
New World Order.
Yeah, but whether it's new, we have to adapt to it. We have to adapt to it and stay strong and not get too...
And that's where the betrayal comes in, because there's so many things I've told myself that I will never do that you can just see rolling forward. Yeah.
Oh, really? What like?
666 on your fucking forehead for, you know, that sort of shit.
What's that?
You know, people using chips to do their banking. People, you know, the sort of things that you know are coming.
Right.
Because all of the governments of the world are all bringing in all of this stuff, which is all about the New World Order. So yeah, I want the simpler days when I didn't know about any of that bullshit. I can see myself betraying myself, you know, as you get to that spot.
But it's okay, because in your personal identity here, you've got the Hermit. We'll read that. This is a really good card with this here. Because the Hermit, we'll read it, it's really amazing. Because it, like, this is about coming back to life. This is about coming back to life. This is about getting people to come up to your level.
Right.
Right? Which might be what needs to be taught. And because your level becoming more enlightened by all this, do you know what I mean? It forces spirituality.
Yeah, totally.
Like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so it's like, and so this, And so now you're actually, I know this, you're in a position that not many other healers are in, you know? And so that's something, I haven't worked it out yet, but geez, it's a really strong reading. What are you getting?
Oh, I've got no idea.
Oh, feel all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, you're recording it, so you can look back on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. What is it, a night? Oh, that's what I need, the light.
Oops.
Oh, that's it. So the Knight of Corns. So the card shows a knight on a camel which stands on gold coins. So there's this money stuff, but it's here at home. Do you know what I mean? Like in the vocational stuff, you got these weird cards in the works. Like they're pretty weird cards.
Right.
Like these are money cards, coins are money. Like they're natural positions here.
Right, okay.
Because it's like, it works like swords, coins, wands, and cups. They're the natural, they represent those areas. Because wands represents home, do you know what I mean? So they actually represent those spaces naturally. And swords is about, you know, justice and social, administrative. And coins are about wealth, and cups are about spirituality. And
Okay.
it's a chalice.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
Right, so the card shows the knight on a camel which stands on gold coins. The knight is a Sufi, an esoteric who is interested in everything visible, though particular in everything that's hidden from our eyes. This is the research you're doing. With his hand, he is gesturing the camel that it must continue to the other side of the golden path, because gold is the only means, because gold is only a means and not a goal in itself. It means that one must be able to shrug off. Oh, this is interesting. Isn't this interesting? On his journey, the Sufi must find a way to reach Vesal, which signifies the mystical union with the Creator, with God, in both positive and negative position. This card belongs to the domain of En Sof. Isn't that interesting? There's this spiritual thing and actually says it. Anyway, so the positive position, which it's got a negative card, we have to read both. A young person is committed to justice and human rights. Possessing a highly developed sense of honour, maintaining and imparting the traditional, ethical, moralistic and esoteric values. A person of great faith who prefers to live the virtues rather than talk about them, and who is incorruptible. So you said something before that you felt like you'd been corrupted, doing things that you never thought you'd do.
Well, not yet, but I can see it happening in the future.
Right, well this is saying that actually you're not like that. And that's what it's saying.
Okay.
So you want to hold on to your ideals and your values and let them hold you up away from those decisions. Do you like that idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what values are. The values hold us up, right? So just say, like, Anki Snoke gives an example that she says she uses in her study. She goes, I have a value that I want to stay married lifelong. So therefore, that value keeps you out of even thinking another way. That's how powerful values are. And if you can define them, define your values, they hold you up even easier. They keep you out of that fucking
And I think that's a really
shitty
weird
stuff.
thing these days, is that a lot of people don't know their values. They've just
That's
been
right.
at school, they've been at university, they believe what they've been told to believe and haven't actually thought it through.
But they're not values.
Exactly.
Like,
This is my point.
But remember,
So-
remember when we grew up, it was like, even the atheists, like in a small town, you can see, everyone had his Christian values holding them up, even if they're atheists. I remember them talking about it. It was like set for everyone back then.
Right.
You know, it was like, because people just weren't real. Like most people, remember, it was like everyone went to church, like
Yeah.
all the Catholics.
Yeah.
Like, no one goes to church. And I'm not saying that that's anything. It's just that when most people are doing that, because they all have the same, like, remember the main things like faith, hope, and charity,
Yeah.
like the Catholic virtues, and there were so many of them, and they're like, because you go to church, and even if you only half listen, there's something going on.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is most of societies become agnostic. They're not atheists. There are those people, and they can be really cruel with all this stuff. Like a lot of the doctors are like that. There's no values holding you up to be an ethical person. And this is saying that you have that naturally. That's so nice. And esoteric, maintaining and imparts, so teaching. Like get the depth of this card. I'll read it again. A young person who's committed to justice and human rights, who possesses a highly developed sense of honour, maintaining and imparting the traditional ethical, moral and esoteric values. This is your teaching. Do you think you like teaching that?
Well, that's part of it all.
I know.
Mm.
But this is clarifying it for you. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
And so a person of great faith who prefers to live the virtues rather than talk about them and who is incorruptible. That's really cool. And see this, therefore, because it's next to it, this is what the actual temptation is. And because remember, like whoever the people are who've used this thing to divide families, which
Yeah.
is the most evil thing you can do, that's what these people are like. That's Ravana describes that. And so it's like, who just what they want. They just take what they want. That's what they're like.
Yeah.
I just take stuff. That's what he'd say. I just take what I want.
Yeah.
That's what Ravana, because I've read about him. And so it's like avoiding those people who take what they want, because they can be in any section. They can be in the natural section. You've
Yeah,
seen them.
totally.
You've seen them everywhere. No groups without them. But the important message of that is that no group is without the good people too, who might be keeping quiet, but they know they have to keep quiet or they'll lose everything. Like being conscientious objectors, we didn't lose everything. We lost the tithe, but we didn't lose our health.
Yeah.
And somehow or other, we were able to get away with it, but got punished for it.
Yeah.
By these people. Yeah, so the negative, a person, and this is the thing, a person who tries to maintain a system of old-fashioned and outmoded values. Oh, I didn't know that. Isn't that interesting? That relates to what I said about this. Can you see that? This is about, that's amazing. A person who tries to maintain an old set of fashioned and outmoded values against the forces of progress. Someone who is unable to recognise the demands of the present and the future. That's such good advice, don't you think? And it's already what we're talking about. A person who tries to maintain a system of old-fashioned, so you've got to let go of those old-fashioned, do you know what I mean? Like the world's changed, the whole dynamics changed, the old values don't work very well anymore.
Yeah.
Like, unless you've already, like, I'm someone who's been adaptive, because I already got my spiritual thing, I've got my guides, and I've got my, I've got my people who really are like Brooklyn, and they're just like, and so it's like there's some, so the temptation is that Sita's holding on to an old set of values where she just trusts everyone.
Right.
Right, and so she trusts him, and then but she didn't listen.
Yeah.
Ravana was pretty clear, just don't go out the side of the circle. So don't be tricked, don't be fooled. No, is this like all the stuff going on in the world?
Yeah.
Is this amazing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I don't feel like I'm going to be fooled because I've got my eyes wide open.
Because of this. You won't be. But you have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
Because these people are manipulative.
Because most people don't want to be aware of it.
No,
most people are hiding.
But the people who are, most people are good, right? And they're influenced. Like there's 10% evil, 10% saintly. I think they work it out like that in sociology.
Right.
And the 80% in the middle are influenced, right? And it's not their fault because they're innocent. Most people are simple people. They're not even thinking about this very much. They just want to be told what to do. and when they're getting told two things to do, it's really hard for them, right? It's most people are good, and it's when the evil 10% push in, right? Jung talks about it. He says something like, it only takes the evil people to expand to like 20%, where they can control a lot of the other 80%, right? And that's what's happened. Can you see that's what's happened?
Right.
But you've got to, because I've been isolated for long, people, and just starting to counselling a little bit. I'm saying, oh, people are so lovely.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what the truth is. And all they did was to protect their jobs, which you can't blame them for that. They just made a decision. Like it happened to Beth, she had to do it. It's like heartbreaking for us, and when you see the people who were forced into it, they weren't just going yes. I mean, some of the people she knew were, but a lot of people were suffering over it because some people don't have time to keep up with the research. I could only do it because I was at school. I was studying, so I had time, and it was also functional because I was learning, and now here I am on the front line, and I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What do you think? What do you think of that? So this is that lines up with that. What I just read about that's that, and it's in the present, right? And so that's growing in the future. That ethical person.
Yeah.
This isn't happening. You pass the test.
Because of the ethics.
No, because of this. because of these two moves that you've done in the past and you're doing in the present, you're bringing yourself back to life now, right, in the new context. So the old context was like, holy shit, do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you were saving other people, right? Now they're saving you, them. And now we've got the Hermit, which I want to read. So he's number 9, everybody's favourite number.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
So I think this here is the main message. This will be the main message of the reading.
Okay.
Yeah, number 9. And so number 9, just the number itself, numerologically, at least in Sanskrit, Nava means 9. It means ever fresh, right? It means that which is made new. You know that Christian thing? It's like that which is made new. It's a return to innocence.
Turn over a new leaf.
Turning over a new leaf. Do you want to read it or will I? Hearing's good.
Hearing's good.
Okay, so this comes from the word teth, which means mud. Though not just the mud on the ground under our feet, but also the mud that was once used to stick the straw roofing in place of huts. From that comes the other meaning, roof, the upper limit of the house. In Hebrew, the letters teth, tu, and to are both T. Tet is microcosm, which becomes aware of the existence of the macrocosm. While Tau is the macrocosm, which becomes aware of the existence of the microcosm. The hermit keeps himself shut off from the outside world. So that's about looking at the microcosm and macrocosm thing. It's like I use it in my system. So
Yep.
this system, right, is about in the centre is the conscience, and the conscience, Guru Maharaj says that the conscience in its most refined form is the direct dictation from God within. So, so in the consciousness section, what was I saying? Got a bit. Right, microcosm, macrocosm. Yeah, so with this, it's like these cards which represent social, that's social community. That's how it goes out from the centre. Macrocosm, microcosm goes outward like that on every side. So this is family community, do you know what I mean? Private community. This is work and vocational community. This is social community. and this is spiritual communities. And so the what's being said there is that it's when the awareness of how, from a central point we see out, and then when we see out, from out we see coming in, which is, it's a bit like that thing we're talking about, seeing individual people, then seeing the statistical thing, and then how does that affect us internally? How does it affect our conscience? Do you know what I mean? When we see that double-sided vision. And so the light from the hermit's lantern is the essence of the ninth major arcanum, which is another light as well as these three. And it's a protected light that benefits others. But the average person can only partly perceive. Isn't that interesting? We were just talking about that before. The innocent people,
Right.
they can't see the light, and so it's not their fault. Like, most people are innocent and they've been led one way or another by
Yes.
information.
Yeah.
They just, and they believed it. And maybe they believed it out of expedience because it was a desperate thing to do, which in the COVID thing, it was definitely like that. It's like you had to make a decision quickly. You were going to lose your job and suffer that way. You had a choice of two different types of suffering. It's always a bad deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
You had to make two bad choices and you had to choose one. That's what they gave the people.
Yeah.
And so, so the light from the hermit's lantern, and this is the main meaning of the reading, my feeling, is the essence of so it is a protected light that benefits others, which you do, but which the average person can only partly perceive. Judging the average person's wrong because of that. They can't get to it. So it's the light of the enlightened and the chosen ones, outwardly modest, but richer in the spiritual sense than all rulers. What's going on? And this has to do with your work and teaching and understanding how do we relate to the people who can't see it all.
Right.
They're limited in their vision, right? So it's like other people aren't like us. You know what I mean? They don't the ADHD hyperfocus. It's such a magical tool because I can hyperfocus on a problem and you can too because I've seen you and you can get outcomes that other people can't because hyperfocus is the ADHD magic tool. You know what I mean? It's like no one else has it. Like we might mess up a lot, but no one else can do this, solve problems and mull it over and go, psh. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
I'm seeing it. So, the hermit is the positive counterpart of the high priestess. While she must keep a part of her animal and physical personality secret and must deny her material being, the hermit has to hide a part of his spiritual and intellectual being and exercise modesty. Do you see that? So it's really easy when you've got more knowledge than everyone else to become arrogant and egotistic with it.
Yeah.
And that's what this temptation is in this reading. Right? It's that thing that, because I haven't, I mean, I'm brilliant, except my confidence is like a feather in the wind. Do you know what I mean? Because I can be next minute, help.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, we can all be like that.
Yeah. But the hermit has to hide part of his spiritual and intellectual being and exercise modesty. The hermit is redolent of the ascetics and saints who go into the desert more in order to know themselves and better than to put their endurance to the test. Isn't that interesting? What does that say? The hermit's redolent of the ascetics and the saints. What does redolent mean? Redolent. Does that mean with them or different from them?
Not sure.
Who go into the desert in order to know themselves better, then put their endurance to the test. He is not a fakir, he is a wise man. So it's not being an ascetic, it's not being a yogi, it's not being putting yourself through that harshness. It's about being a wise person and being humble about it. because I see on both sides of this there's arrogance. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like I just see it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like in the polarized families, it's just arrogance on both sides, and no one's ready to let go and be the humble person. But the hermit is the one who can do it because and the reason you can do it is because of the intact virtues. So you don't need to stoop to that level, like they are. Like when somebody's stooping at you, if someone's like really, like, you know, it's like in a relationship, if you've got a really controlling partner, right, you're really in love, and so you tolerate it, but it's still like a, you know, and you wouldn't change it, but there's still a thing there,
Yeah.
right? And so it's about, and it's like in my case, like I'm so intellectual and I can be really arrogant. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, and you know, like in my own family, I know family system therapy, and I can pick all the things, but you can't say them.
Yeah.
Right? And so, what value does my study have when it comes to back to the only really part you care about is your family, and that's the only reason you're doing these other things? And you're like, my knowledge doesn't help.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so, we're dealing with cases in the world where the knowledge becomes unhelpful, the specialized, specific knowledge, because the normal people can't access it,
Yeah.
like it says in the beginning. And anyway, so the positive meaning, we'll read the flanking ones too, is that this card signifies a friendship, protection or healing power on the part of a highly learned person who can live amongst the throng and can simultaneously distance themselves from it. Do you get that? You're like that. I'm like that. Like I can be the real everyday guy.
Yeah.
I'm not repelled against like things like cleaning or like a lot of guys are. I'm like, I'll be the house dad. Do you know what I mean? It's like that ability to be the jack of all roles, right? It's like a really nice thing when you can show your humility, and you do that.
Yeah.
And so the hermit indicates that the human merits and values of the inquirer have not yet been recognised to their fullest extent. It is the central part, and it's in your identity. So powerful if you can get this. The hermit indicates that the human merits and values of the inquirer have not yet been recognised, which is what this means too. And that to their fullest extent, but this will happen in the near future. It said it'll happen. Not many things say that it will happen. All right, in the negative position, the hermit signifies abstention, loneliness, and isolation. So you see those three words, abstention, loneliness, and isolation? They are what he says the hermit doesn't. So the fakir, the yogis who put their human endurance, go to the desert or something, it says the hermit shouldn't do those things. So the hermit signifies abstention, loneliness, and isolation. So that's not what's needed. You don't need to abstain. You don't need to isolate yourself because you're not going to be lonely. So that's not. So these aren't relevant to that. Although there's Shiva there, who represents that. So the hermit and Shiva represents the yogi, but you're in the position where it's not time for that, although it's here. Maybe it's time for that.
Which bit is this?
Oh, well, this is your network. Shiva in that position could mean re-evaluating your social contacts to make them more up to date with the new way. If you come to a new way of seeing, like the hermit's suggesting, it could be a reorganisation or a reprioritization in your personal network. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what that means. Oh, I can read the card if you want. Gee, Madonna, that's a good reading. I've got to do it. Om Namah Shivaya. All the aces are good. On this minor arcanum, we see Shiva, one of the three highest deities in Hinduism, and on the peak of Nanda Devi, or White God, the highest summit of the Indian Himalayas, Mount Kailash. He is mighty and has many arms that symbolize the eternal creation. Shiva's dance is divine. It's the rhythm of life which creates everything that is positive, ethical, and beautiful. Holy shit. The Ace of Wands, sorry, I might have misread that, but we'll see what it is. The Ace of Wands is a symbol of the masculine principle, solar, active, energetic, and creative. Shiva is truly the universal masculine principle. So that could be a masculine energy coming in that wasn't there before. In the divinity, it says power and energy that accumulate in the fire element, the masculine power of creation, manliness, creativity, fruitfulness, creative energy, which is what you need to teach, instigation of productive business, wedding. So, right, so your network is really good, and it has the power to bring on the new way of seeing things from what we've seen. You've got it recorded so you'll be able to remember it. Right, so the negative side, if this is influenced by this, it's impotence, sterility, self-assurance with a destructive effort, which is what the Hermit's talking about. Every thought that arises concerning measures, should be avoided and guarding against. To guard against failure or disappointment, whether on the moral or the material level. What does that mean? That means that, so it's that thing, it's that arrogance, right? So it's the arrogance because it's that self-assurance with a destructive effect, right? This is what to be guarded against. Every thought that arises concerning measures, should be avoided to guard against failure or disappointment, whether on the moral or material level. So the thing about Seth is that what he does is measures. It's about measuring, and so it's saying to avoid measuring. Strange meaning, except that's what he does. He measures. He's like Seth, like divides things up. The spirit, because the spiritual thing's all in harmony, but materialistic people divide things up into pieces.
Okay.
Name them, call them things, and a lot of it's shit. Right? So it's saying to avoid measures for the moment, which is really strange. Yeah, so because if that ego comes, that's self-assurance that can be destructive. Anyway, but basically, really positive cards. And the ones that were betrayal or negative, the ones around it gave really good meaning actually to counteract. Did you notice that? Like everything had a counteractive that was much more powerful. Do you know what I mean? Like, because all the positive cards are real, like that's like the most positive card in the deck. It means that in the present you're becoming aligned with your truer self, the spiritual self, and it's been abstract for a while and it's going to become more clear. Right, and that's saying it's becoming more clear by adjusting your vision according to the Hermit's thing, which is going easy on the ordinary people who don't get it. Because most people, that's the 80%. They're not stupid. They're like, in the Lord of the Rings, it's like somebody says something about, who's the guy who, the innkeeper at the Wild Pony?
Yeah.
They said something about him being simple, and they're all simple, and he's like, yeah, the whole reason we're fighting is so they can stay simple.
Yeah, right.
Right, because the people don't want to be overburdened with intellectual, they just want people to tell them what to do. Like most people, tell me what to do. They want a solution quickly. Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to look at? Pretty incredible reading, and you've got a recording of it, so lucky.
Nice. No, not really. That's great.
What do you think of that?
Cool.
It was pretty nice to read, I tell you.
Yeah, nice.
And I could spend another hour on it.
Nice.
That's really clear, isn't it?
So the teaching stuff, it's sort of saying that it needs to continue.
Oh, not only that, not only needs to continue, it's already what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
it's what's happening, and because it's a go, it's like it just needs another element of the enlightenment that the hermit's showing.
Yeah.
You see that it needs to go through because remember, the card underneath is a protected journey or a protected change. It's actually safe to change to the new value set, right? It's safe to change, and it's like being held onto the old value system. It's like when we've been through such a international catastrophe, the old value set needs to be updated. You know, because it's saying that you already have the established values, but there's also the new values that have to be established to hold you up and keep out of the temptation of what that's saying. That it's like that if the self assurance is related to the old values, it becomes impotent and sterile. Right, so
Right.
it's about value updating to the new things to hold yourself up and keep you strong. That's amazing, I mean, you know, do you want to take a photo of them? That's pretty good, isn't it? You
Yeah,
don't need
cool.
it. Okay. Yeah, the teaching is the basis, right? There it is,
Yeah.
and it's moving up. See, so it's talking about a past where the past is being focused on. It's a problem. The new value is standing up. It's like, what else is there? What? How do I adjust my value system to this insane thing that's happened?
Yeah.
Right, that you're on the front line with.
Yeah.
You know, and because the 80% people, they don't even know anything about the front line. They don't see the suffering. They just see it's like most of the people around here at school, they're just fine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they're not tracing the cognitive impairment that's slight. Do you know what I mean? But you know, over time, or the blood clots that they see pulling out of everybody's cadavers now.
Yeah.
So you saw them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man!
I saw that a couple of years ago.
But only a few people see that. It's
Yeah.
a small minority, and that small minority has an opportunity of being arrogant. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And more actually pushing in a way that doesn't work. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
We should finish now because that's an hour.
Excellent.
How, Madonna, that was such a nice reading.
Nice.
Thank you.